Hello there, and welcome to Magic by Design. If you're new to the podcast, allow me to give you the 411, as it were. We are on a mission to watch and review every Disney animated feature film. Each week, we break down a movie from the Disney canon in an attempt to discover the secrets behind the magic. This week, we are back in familiar territory with Disney's 1948 musical anthology film Melody Time, the 10th film in the series. But before we get down to it, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ken, and I am joined, as always, by my brother / co-host, Gar. Gar, how are you?
More like Melody Time, am I right?
More like melody crime, because it stole an hour and 15 minutes of my life.
This, usually when I sit down for these podcasts, I have, takes. I'm like, yeah, I have opinions about these films, and I think I have something at least relatively interesting to say about these films. Melody Time. I took exactly 4 notes, Ken. 2 of which are just one-word notes, which are barely even notes. I don't even think I have things to say about this film. Never mind, deep critical analysis that obviously our listeners have come to expect out of us every week.
Yeah, me too. I was finishing the script earlier today when I was supposed to be working, and I was like, what are my takes on this film? And then I was like, what was this film? Because I can't even remember most of it, if I'm truly being honest.
Because I don't even think it's that bad.
No, in fairness, I didn't find myself 3 Caballeros level of hating it, but I also don't find myself gravitating towards any of the segments or remembering it with any fondness.
There's none of this film that I'm like, oh, geez, that's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Most of this film just exists.
Yeah.
It exists in the melody time, and it's forgettable. There's none of the sequences are particularly memorable, none of the music is particularly memorable, none of the stories are particularly memorable, and it just exists. It just floats there in time as a film that was made by Disney in the year 1949 or whatever.
1948, I said it earlier.
Alright, because I listened to you.
Thanks, Gar.
You're welcome. Yeah, this is a weird one, because we're going to go through it, and we're going to go through it segment by segment, and you're going to be like, what about this segment, Garrett? And I'm like, there was bumblebees. It was about it. I got nothing else. There's bumblebees. I think we've covered that segment now. We don't need to talk about it later.
Yeah. In fact, we could just end the podcast here after. Let me see how long we've been doing this. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Shortest episode of Magic by Design yet.
3 minutes and we're out of here. The clock is ticking in the clear. If Rosie and Jamal showed up in this film, that would be something. That would be something worth talking about.
You mean the WWE wrestlers of the early aughts?
Sure.
Both of them are dead now, actually.
That's sad.
That is quite sad. I just remembered that, and it made me kind of a bit sad in my heart.
Well, way to bring melody to melody. The whole film of Melody Time is fun with music, and then,
There was no fun with music to be had here, Gar.
It's just music. That's it. It's not bad. It's really not bad. There's nothing about it that I'm like, ugh. This is terrible. It exists. It just exists.
I think it was distinctly fine.
Yeah.
That's how I'd sum it up. So let's go into the background, Gar, before we go into the segments. This is the 5th film of the package era, so the penultimate film in this run of 6 package films.
Oh, thank God.
It's made up of 7 musical segments in the mold of Fantasia and Make Mine Music. In late 1947, Disney announced that he would regrouping some of his various shorts that were in development into 2 titles to be released in August 1948 and 1949. One was Melody Time, which we watched today, and the other was Two Fabulous Characters, which later became The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which we will be watching next week.
Which are two shorts, aren't they? Similar to the one last week.
Like last week, so it's 2 featurettes.
Featurettes, you and your words again.
That's a real word.
All right, I'll believe you.
I knew you were going to call me on that. That's why I went on the defensive straight away.
But yeah, it's just Melody Time. And because we watched Make Mine Music, and I was pleasantly surprised with Make Mine Music. I enjoyed Make Mine Music. It's not like I have a complete, I had a similar level of dread going into watching Make Mine Music. I won't deny that. But I was pleasantly surprised. It's I thought it was maybe better than Fantasia. But this is just, it's so boring. And it's not even boring. I don't have the vocabulary to describe this film, because it's not bad, it's not boring, but it's not good. It's not entertaining, but it's not entertaining. It exists in this weird middle ground below good but above bad, but still worse than fine, I think. Slightly worse than fine, but still not like boring. I don't know, because I didn't think it dragged. I think as a 75-minute experience, it goes by relatively fast. There's 2-ish longer segments. Those kind of drag, but it keeps on moving. I don't know, Ken. I don't know.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I'm not adverse to the short format, the collection of shorts making
I'm
up
kind
a
of
feature
averse
film.
to it at this stage, I will admit.
I was about to say, at this point, I'm about to hand wave it, Gar. But I think it could be done better in the modern era. With better storytelling, better music, and more of a cohesive arc, or not even like a storyline that ties them all together. It doesn't have to be like a cinematic universe, but at least has to be a central theme, so you understand what the mission of the film is.
And like, we're watching these films week to week, so maybe it wouldn't be as unbearable. Maybe unbearable is the wrong word. Again, I don't have the vocabulary. It would be less unbearable maybe if we watched these films year to year as they were released. I don't know. I cannot go back in time. All I can say is Melody Time is a film that exists.
It exists, and we watched it, and now we're talking about it. Melody Time is considered...
We're going full Perd Hatley. We're just going to start describing what we're doing instead of describing the film.
This film was a film that exists, and I watched it. And I finished watching it, and I went to bed.
This is my review, which I will talk to you through a microphone, which you're listening to in your ears.
How is it? Time will tell. Melody Time is considered to be the last anthology film, because the next one, as we said, it's not kind of like...
There's another Fantasia coming, so...
Yeah, the last in this vein of stringing together some disparate shorts that have a loose theme around them.
Desperately crawling through what existed in the Disney vault at that stage, being like, can we justify putting this in a film? I guess. Oh, look, there's this freaking Fantasia castaway. Let's throw this in the film, all right.
As opposed to Final Fantasy 3, in which, we have 2 featurettes that it's bound to. Mm-hmm. Apparently in this film, Walt Disney let his animators and his colour technicians have free reign, so this is the result of boundless creativity and freedom.
Clearly Walt Disney needs to hammer the fist down. Otherwise Let's
imagine him in the premiere going, what the hell is this?
This is why I meticulously craft every detail of my films, you foolish animators. It's like, and it's not bad. I don't know.
Some of this might shed some light on this, Gar. Melody Time was unusual in that until 1998, about 50 years after its initial release, it was one of the handful of Disney animated features yet to be released on video cassette.
Because of smoking?
Possibly, or maybe just general lack of interest.
They hated it. Well, did the film do financially well? It probably did.
I've got some notes here. I was just about to get to it.
All right.
That's a very apt question. Melody Time was mildly successful at the time of its release. Signs were that the public's limited interest in the musical anthology films was waning.
They really did. It's like Fantasia was hugely ambitious, extraordinarily expensive, and it's like moderately successful, more successful over time than it was originally. Then they're like, we'll do it again, make mine music. And then people are still like, eh. It's like, we'll do it again.
Triple down. The film received generally negative reviews at the time of its release. A lot of them converged on the fact that it was a bit cobbled together and bereft of new ideas and just felt like it was lazy.
Yeah, because like I was giving out to you last week about how these films do in fact have framing devices. They're not just thrown together for no reason. But this one has the exact same framing device as as Make My Music does. It's like it's a theater show,
and it has the old trope that they love of painting in the action as it happens.
Oh yeah, this film is full of all the gimmicks that they love. Every gimmick they love that's been in another film, like 2 characters fall in love immediately. The animation happens as it's being drawn. All these things that
Jose karaoke for some reason.
Yes, who will never go away apparently. It does have Donald though. Donald is always appreciated. But it has all the things that you're like, oh well, this was a success, wasn't it? And it was interesting when you saw it the first time. It has the mix of animation and live action that is in that Jose karaoke scene. It has all those little things that you saw in the previous films that were interesting in those previous films, at least on their own merits, even though I did not like the Three Caballeros. I did think the integration of animation and live action was well done.
And had a novelty to it.
Whereas here, it's just like, let's just do it again, and let's just do all these things we've done before again, just in a way that is less interesting and less memorable.
Gar, to answer your question before we get into the first short, it earned about 2.5 million, which is about 25 million in today's money, but that was by 1951, so that was about 3 years after its release. So it took quite a while to make any money.
And as you said, this never really got re-releases. The individual shorts, I'd imagine, probably did, but never as a whole.
Yeah. So I would say it's one of the most forgettable ones in the Disney canon. Nobody really talks about it. And in fairness,
this entire era of films, no one talks about Make Mine Music. Nobody talks about Fun and Fancy Free. Mr. Ichabod and Toad, maybe. Sleepy Hollow is a thing people remember, and it became a television show as well. And it's a story that precedes it. But yeah, this entire sequence of films basically sits Bambi, which was the last actual feature, wasn't it?
Correct.
So yeah, this entire streak of films since Bambi are a streak of films nobody remembers. Not a person. People talk about Dumbo, people talk about Bambi, people talk about Snow White, people talk about Fantasia. People do not talk about Make Mine Music. It might as well not exist.
I think people remember elements from it, the ones that, as you say, were more successful and were re-released over the years, or took on a life of their own beyond the film as a successful entity in its own right.
And we get why these films are the way they are. It's the frickin' war. It's the middle of World War II. Nobody wants to go see Toonies in their theater in the middle of World War II, and the frickin' studio has been requisitioned to make propaganda. So
yeah, and once you know the context behind it, and you know that they're scrambling to get stuff that was unfinished or get stuff that was put on hold, and take songs that were cut and just put together to release something so they can keep the studio going. And then obviously, as we said last week, in the late 40s to try and pull in the money to go back to those features that we loved so much.
Yeah, all eyes here are on Cinderella, which is 2 films away still. Well, a film. It's 2 episodes away for us.
Yeah, things very much go uphill from there, so we just got to hold on for another 2 movies.
So what is considered the Disney Renaissance is coming, but these films we had to suffer. You have to suffer to get the good stuff.
Yeah.
In the immortal words of Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, except in this case it's a spoonful of medicine helps you survive long enough to eat the sugar in the 50s.
I mean, you have Dumbo and you have Bambi, but largely you can pretty much write off the entire decade of the 40s for Disney.
But Bambi's the best of these films so far, so you can't just entirely write off the 40s.
I gave it its due, Gar. The other stuff is garbage. Anyway, not garbage. There was elements there, and as I said, they learned lessons and they learned techniques that they would take forward, but they really relied on them in these package films and overused them.
Yeah, because Melody Time was fully the breaking point of my interest in these style of films. It's just I enjoy an animated short. I don't really enjoy a collection of animated shorts, because that's not how they're meant to be consumed. The idea is they're meant to be shorts. The idea is you're meant to watch one of them, go oh, that's a good idea, good jokes there, nice animation, then 6 minutes later you never have to think about another short again in your life until you decide to watch another one, and they're usually attached to the start of films where then you watch the actual feature. So I think the idea of a collection of shorts being released as a theatrical feature is inherently flawed.
I think after this they went back to the much more tried and trusted method of having them be tack-ons to the big features, like something before the big show,
which they still do to this day.
Indeed. And then with the advent of television, they're producing as television content, and I think that's a better place for shorts. I think you're right in that sense. So the first short we see in Melody Time is Once Upon a Wintertime. This segment features Frances Langford singing the title song about 2 romantic young lovers named Jenny and Joe. I did not know that at the time, actually.
They weren't named in it, were they? They might have been in the music. Some of the music in this film is hard to understand.
It is, and that's a theme of this movie. We'll get onto that later.
It's weird, because some of it is actually crystal clear, perfectly easy to hear, and maybe it's a time thing. Maybe it's just delivery of this in the 40s would have been better understood, and I don't have the ear for that kind of music in the 40s. Maybe that's, or in the 2020s. Maybe that's the problem, but I don't know. It was weird.
I think so, but the fidelity was also quite low in some areas.
But yeah, it's strange. But then it's not in others. As I said, in others it's crystal clear. Then in some, so that makes me think it's a style of singing that my ear isn't adjusted to, or maybe it is just bad audio quality every so often,
or pronunciation, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. Unlike most Disney cartoons, Jenny and Joe have no spoken dialogue in this cartoon. It's all through pantomime and action.
Which is probably my problem with this. We're going back to the premise of a collection of shorts, which I think, as I just said, is inherently flawed. What is even more flawed again is a collection of shorts centered around the theme of music exclusively, so that you don't have stories intertwined. And it's basically, what if we had a variety show except everything was the same, which is what these films kind of end up being. Joe
shows off on the ice for his lover Jenny, resulting in a near tragedy when they have a bit of a falling out, and then Jenny falls into the ice and a timely rescue ensues. This is intertwined with a similar rabbit couple, so the rabbits are going through the same motions as the couple. I think that was a kind of a cute device. It lended to the comedy of the piece. Like several other segments of the package era films, Once Upon a Winter's Time was later released theatrically as an individual short in around September 17th, 1954.
Around September 17th, roughly around that very specific date.
Thanks, Gar.
You're welcome.
You know what? I'm doing my best here.
To jump on every single tiny mistake.
I'm doing my best here to make this
like
film sound interesting.
That I am.
Clips from the beginning and the end of the short were, you remember when they were going along in a horse-drawn carriage, featured in Disney's Very Merry Christmas Songs, which was, I think that was a Christmas release. It's like a VHS thing.
Well, I doubt they'd release Disney's Very Merry Christmas Songs in the middle of Easter now, would they?
Just can't help yourself.
I really can't. I'm really just a jerk.
So if this sounds familiar, you will have seen pieces of this sequence before, even if you haven't seen the short.
Oh, this is all right. This is one of the at least slightly more memorable ones.
This actually, when the film started, and it was memorable, it was funny, it had a decent story, and I liked the song. And then I was like, okay, maybe this might be another Make Mine Music, and then it just all went downhill from here.
I did think this was also slightly too long, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I think about a hair too long. Get it, rabbit?
Yeah, it's good. There's bunny jokes.
Maybe like
that's very punny, but bunnies.
I would have had this be about 6 minutes in and out.
Like, yeah, like there's the whole sequence where they're falling down the river, and it's like, what are we even doing at this stage?
Yeah,
and
that could have been like 2 minutes of a sequence.
Very ill-advised to be like skating shapes into ice. That's not a thing you should do. Ice breaks. So they really got what they deserve, is what I'm saying.
True. One thing I noticed about old-timey skates were they weren't actually shoes in themselves. They were attachments to put on your shoes. And like, honestly, you said this last night, and you're right. That's a lot more practical.
It does feel more practical than having specific shoes that you wear only on ice, as opposed to attaching. I suppose, I don't know. There's probably a reason that we went to generally adopting ice skates, but I'll never know what it is. I'm now going to Google ice skates.
Go ahead, Gar. Well, I introduced the next segment, which was Bumble Boogie. This segment presents a surreal battle for a solitary bumblebee as he tries to ward off visual and musical frenzy. So he basically gets chased by a piano, which is a snake, or is it like a caterpillar? I can never tell.
Apparently ice skates were invented by the Finns.
Yeah, because they look like fins.
There you go, like 5,000 years ago.
Good to know.
So they made of animal bones.
The music in this short is courtesy of Freddie Martin and his orchestra, with Jack Finna playing the piano. It's a jazz swing variation of Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee, which was one of the many pieces that was considered for inclusion in Fantasia. As you said earlier, there's really not much to say about this. It's very similar to the short in Make Mine Music, where the anthropomorphized musical instruments were running away from music also. So this is basically, this is the same short. You just sub out the instruments for a bumblebee.
Bees. And it wasn't interesting then either, so that doesn't help either.
But as we said at the time for Make Mine Music, it didn't outsay its welcome. It was about maybe 1-2 minutes long. 3 minutes. Tops,
yeah. But it's one of those abstract music is happening, bees, shapes, instruments. Who cares?
The next... Here, hold on. We're going to get through this. Next, we have The Legend of Johnny Appleseed. And honestly, I would say this is my favourite short in the film.
Johnny should have stayed in his orchard. Like, come on. You don't need to go west. You have plenty of apples. What happened? Like, he never left anybody in charge of his orchard. Did all those apple trees just die?
I'm fairly sure they did, Karen. They were left unattended for about 40 years.
So Johnny single-handedly, grew apple trees across the entire US West, which led to people colonizing there. So thank you, Johnny, I guess. Or maybe not thank you, I don't know. Johnny
is apparently John Chapman, who spent most of his life roaming America, as you said, mostly in Ohio and Indiana. Did I say Ohio?
You did say Ohio. I wasn't going to jump on you because I'm a nice guy.
Well, you know, that would be out of character for you, given how this podcast has started. Ohio is what I meant to say. In the pioneer days, so an angel shows up and tells him that he should go west and start planting apples everywhere.
He sees the whatchamacallit, I was going to say barricade. What's the word I'm looking for? Of a bunch of carts moving together.
Motorcade? No. We went to Egypt one time and we had to travel everywhere like this because it was safer. And the word is not coming to me.
It's completely
convoy.
Gone. Yeah, there we go. He joined the convoy past them of all the little carts, and he was like, "Oh, look, they're all going west, and I'm all lonely here by myself growing apples. I'm going to go with them. Oh, what's that, Angel? I should do that. Okay." I thought the character design here was appealing. It had a really fun song about planting apples across the USA. What I will say, they were a little lazy with the animation at times, because the character of Johnny and, say, the Angel were quite sophisticated and actually quite reminiscent of the characters that you'd see in later films, right? Well
designed and thought out. And then we'd have people in the convoy who had little dots for eyes, even though they were in close up, so you could see them. So like, are they like a different species, or what are they?
Well, they're American, so definitely.
Yeah. And this segment also posits the theory that the Indians and the white people live hand in hand and side by side, and they dance together all day long.
This is not the first time there's problematic material related to Native Americans. Like later in the film, the character just shoots at them for no discernible reason, and they're like, yeah, you do it, whatever that character's name was in Pecos. Bill. Was his name Bill? Was he the titular Bill?
He was the titular Bill.
When Bill shot at the Indians, it's just like, what the hell? What the hell, film?
Gar, I know you want to get this film finished, but you're skipping ahead here.
Oh, we can't just skip straight to the last one? That's not how this works?
No, sorry. This short had a running time of 17 minutes, making it the second longest piece in the film. In fairness, I didn't feel the 17 minutes. I thought it moved along at a good pace.
Jesus was there for you.
Yes, he was.
Yes. This is weirdly religious for a Disney short.
Disney tends to stay out of that sort of thing, but, you know...
Being like, the Lord will guide you, and whatever the song was.
Yeah, when you're in financial trouble, I guess maybe you need to bring in the Christian... I was going to say bring in the Christian crowd, but I can't say it.
Christian crowd. Christian coalition. There you go.
That's much better.
The Instant Classic brings together the Christian coalition with Johnny Appleseed to make the US West delighted, because that's how they roll their convoy through the US West. See, it's a series of Christian jokes based on the pro wrestler Christian.
Gar, the Christian listeners are going to go through the roof on the podcast.
In the immortal words of Todd Grisham, it's Christian.
As I said, Gar, I like the music of this film.
Sing a song from this film.
Shut up.
There you go. There's nothing.
But upon reviewing the music that Ken Darby had composed for Johnny Appleseed, Walt Disney buried the music, basically. He described it as like New Deal music. I don't know what that means.
What does that even mean?
Is he referring to like the newfangled music that the young people are listening to? Is he referring to the New Deal that was after World War II?
Then it was after the Wall Street crash, but yeah. That brought in like Social Security in the US. So maybe he's like, all those kids on Social Security are just making music or something. I don't know.
This music sounds like socialism.
Walt Disney does hate.
Darby apparently was enraged, a fellow Ken, I can understand that, and said to Disney that his opinion was just a cross-section of one man's thoughts. Darby was employed at Disney for a short time after that, so anyone that clashed with Walt was
cut him. He just like, get out
the door. Eventually Johnny Appleseed, he travels the country for 40 years and he befriends animals. Initially, the animals don't trust him and they think about killing him when he's planting his apple seeds, but then they come to love him and he just travels around with his horde of animals.
I nearly remember. So the Lord, what is it? The Lord is good to me. Yeah, the Lord is good to, there you go. Remember the Jesus music. The Lord won't be good to him when the bear eats him.
Johnny Appleseed, one of the things that's quite familiar to people who know the story is that he's initially hesitant to go to because he doesn't have all the things that he needs. And then the ghost angel tells him, all you need is your apple seeds, the Bible, and a copper pot because it can double as a hat.
There you go.
Yeah.
These are the essentials in the world. If you have these, everything is fine.
Johnny eventually passes away and he doesn't realise it, which is kind of a really funny gag at the end. You see him, he falls asleep under a tree with the animals and he passes away and the angel comes back for him to go to heaven. He's like, I'm not ready, I've got more apples to plant. And he's like, we don't have any apples in heaven. Johnny's like, I'm coming with you. I've got a new mission now. So yeah, I thought it was a neat little short. I liked it. Apparently very successful when released on its own, so it's one of the more memorable ones. It was released independently on December 25th, 1955 as Johnny Appleseed. So moving along here, Gar, we're getting to the halfway point. You'll be happy to know. We have little Toot.
Mass murderer. He's a mass murderer.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say about this.
Listen, this entire thing is little Toot is a little pugnacious, like... Tugboat, yes. And he's like...
More like thugboat.
Is pugnacious a word, or am I just combining multiple words?
I made a really good joke there, and you totally know.
Pugboat, yes, there you go. Nailed it. Yeah, he's just like, I'm going to mess with this giant tanker, and then runs it into the frickin' city, knocks over, like, literally a dozen buildings. Like...
So, he kills conservatively 2,000 people?
At least a couple thousand people. Little Toot is a mass murderer. So the prison boats take him away and leave him out at sea, and then he goes and brings another boat in, and it's like... as if that should redeem him. He's a mass murderer. no! Little Toot can't be redeemed. He should have died saving the boat. You see, if I were to write this piece, Little Toot obviously would commit mass murder, and that's very unfortunate. And then Little Toot is banished out into the ocean, but Little Toot then saves the ship out in the ocean, but dies doing so. So while he does have an act of redemption, he is still punished for his mass murder.
I think that's much better than what we actually saw, Gar.
Yeah, Little Toot being welcomed back into the tugboat society as if he didn't kill thousands of people. Or maybe this is some kind of social commentary and the boats don't care about the murder of the people. They just more care about their own? Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, we saw a part of it where Little Toots. I was thinking about this short earlier and I was like, is it called Little Tug? It's not, it's Little Toot. But his dad is shamed from his actions and gets downgraded from a trawler puller to a trash barge puller.
He becomes trash. His dad becomes trash.
So in the hierarchy of tugs, it's very important to keep up appearances.
Understandably so as well, because, his son committed mass murder.
And got away with it.
And he did get away with it. I did love the shot, because I was like, he just committed mass murder. And then the police boats have him with a chain around his neck, taking him out to sea.
Like Hannibal Lecter.
Little Toot would love to defund the police, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Apparently, this is a story. I think it might be a kid's book by Hardy Gramatsky. The Andrews sisters provide the vocals, so it's another one that's sang. The story is sang. The Andrews sisters you may remember from the story of the two hats in Make Mine Music. This is the last time they worked with Disney, in fact. But there you go. It featured in later releases, but and in fairness, apparently it's quite successful. Like, people remember this one fondly. I don't remember much about it.
I clearly remember a lot about it.
I remember the genocide. I think that's where I stopped. I was like, this child has killed thousands of people and is allowed to get away with it. Yeah. So after that, anything that happened, even the redemption arc, I was like, nah.
You're out. I cannot take my cartoons seriously.
The next segment we have, Gar, is Trees. This segment featured a recitation of the 1913 poem Trees by Joyce Kilmer.
Did not understand a word of it.
You absolutely said it there. I was about to say, there was the second portion, maybe a bit more, but the first portion, it was like...
Could have been saying anything. Like, legitimately anything.
Again, this is one of those ones, it's kind of one of those more abstract pieces. It's quite nice to look at. It's pretty.
On an artistic level, it's one of the more interesting because it's like weird and abstract and I can't understand a word, so it could be about anything. It's like, look at the trees, and then what you're looking at is generally not what you think you're looking at. You think you're looking at a sunset or something, but then it turns out that it's just a very brown leaf, falling off a tree in the autumn time or the fall if you're American.
The way you speak about that seems like you've seen it before, Gar.
What's he up? Oh yeah, because they did that in the freaking other one.
Yeah. This one is another repeat of themes and techniques that we've seen before. Although, in fairness, it was painted to look like a pastel image. To preserve the look of the original story sketches, layout artist Ken O'Connor. A lot of Kens back then.
You love this film because it's made out of Kens.
A lot of Kens going around back in the 40s.
Too many Kens in the world, I'll tell you.
He came up with it. What?
Nothing.
You're so mean.
I am.
He came up with the idea of using frosted cells and rendering the pastel images right onto the cell. Before being photographed, each cell was laminated in a clear lacquer to protect the pastels.
Clear what?
Lacquer.
What's a lacquer?
It's kind of a varnish, a clear varnish type thing. But this preserved the images and created a look in animation that we'd never seen before. So this was literally a pastel image that was preserved and shot. So in that way, the technical achievement is actually really interesting and really noteworthy. But other than that, I can't remember it and I couldn't understand any of the singing.
Trees are pretty good. Yeah. I don't like the trees in our back garden.
Why not, Gar?
Well, it's not technically in our back garden. It's technically in our the house behind us. Because there's like 15 bird nests in these trees, Ken. And I do not sleep until like 4 a.m. And in the summer, 4 a.m. is when birds wake up because it's bright outside. And they're like, chirp, 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 chirp. I'm living my bird life and pestering you. And they've been like that for like 20 years. So these birds have pestered me.
They're your mortal enemies.
I do have a vendetta against these birds. I've never harmed them in any way. I don't even see them. Like, if you look, you can see the nests. You can see like 1, 2.
There's loads of them.
There's loads of nests in these trees. But I never actually see the birds in the trees, but I hear the birds in the trees, and they're coming for me.
Are they?
Probably. Well, do you think that they would be making so much noise if they weren't at least plotting something?
Maybe they're just living their lives unaware of you, Gar. Maybe you're not.
These birds
a
are
factor
definitely
in their
aware of me. They look in my window. They're like, you. Chirp, 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 chirp.
Speaking of getting bright at 4 a.m., when I was younger, when your life is in a bit of a downturn, when you're off all the time because you're not working, but you see 4 a.m. like every single night, so you're like, oh, it's getting bright. That's normal. I'll go to sleep now.
That's been me for the last 10 years of my life.
Good job, Gar.
Constant downturn, which is fair.
The penultimate segment is Blame It on the Samba. This segment has Donald Duck and Jose Carioca meeting the Arukian bird from The Three Caballeros.
This was definitely just cut from The Three Caballeros.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. He introduces them to the pleasures of the samba, which is a theme in both the Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. So I feel like one of these films had this as a segment and it was cut.
Yeah.
It's even quite dated in how it looks, so it really feels like it was produced a few years before.
This was definitely just 5 minutes of Saludos Amigos. They're just like, all right, we cut this, but
to the point where
we can add another 5 minutes onto melody time.
And obviously, I'm never tired of Donald Duck. We love Donald.
Donald's
Jose Carioca, I could take or leave, but when this came on during the film, we both audibly sighed.
It's like, no, not more Three Caballeros. I've had enough. I've suffered enough. Though Donald has been in 4 films in a row now.
Yeah.
Which is quite good. Go Donald.
We talked about this last week. Apparently, at the time, Donald's popularity even outshone Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. Well, Donald has 4 films. Mickey only has 2.
Gar, you'll be happy to know we've speedily reached the final segment of Melody Time, which is Pecos Bill. The film's final segment is about Texas's famous hero, Pecos Bill. He was raised by coyotes, as they call it in the film. I call them coyotes.
Yes.
Similar to how Mowgli was raised by the wolves in the Jungle Book.
So, literally, Disney just have no new ideas. Like, even in this, it's like, we have the live action section that leads to the animated section. The live action section even has one of the actors that was in the last live action section. Though the boy, says the best line I've ever heard in the history of film, which is, "Aw, shucks, there's a woman in this story too?" He is...
And you make a sour face.
Furious that there is a woman in this story. And, like, watching this film... in 2020, where legitimately half of the internet discourse is, like, boiled down to...
There's a woman in this too.
Yeah, the raw emotion of, "Aw, shucks, there's a woman in this too." To hear that, like, verbalized in a film from 1948, it's like, that could not be a better commentary on our times. Well done, Melody Time. You've made yourself relevant completely by accident with your sexism and misogyny, and this child is basically the walking embodiment of a review of the film Captain Marvel.
I was expecting him to say afterwards, "I'm okay with the Indians, but I will not tolerate a woman in my stories."
He does not like women, Ken, and he's a steam review of Horizon Zero Dawn. He's what other things have women in them that people hate?
The Last of Us? Do people like
Oh
that?
yes, literally every comment on The Last of Us is this child being mad at a lesbian relationship.
Bill grows up to be the biggest and best cowboy that ever lived. It also features his horse, Widowmaker, which is a very cool name for a horse, and recounts the ill-fated romance between Bill and a beautiful cowgirl named Slew Foot Sue. Say that 10 times fast.
Do you really think Widowmaker is a good name for a horse?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know, it sounds cool.
It's like a good name for a gun. Isn't there a gun called Widowmaker at some stage? I'm going to look that up. But like, how does well, in fairness, he does make a widow out of Bill in this film by shooting Slew or whatever her name is to the moon.
Her name is Sue. Slewfoot Sue. God, I can't say that.
Why did you go back to Slew?
Anyway, Gar, much like the tropes we've seen in the previous films, he falls in love at first sight. This retelling, as you said, features Roy Rogers, Bob Nolan, Trigger, and the Sons of the Pioneers telling the story to Bobby Driscoll, who is your favourite little bigot.
Yes, Widowmaker is an Overwatch character. That's where I remembered Widowmaker from.
Yes. It also features Luana Patton, who you'll remember as the little girl from the birthday party, with Edgar Bergen in the Beanstalk segment of Fun and Fancy Free. And yes, I was running out of breath while saying that.
you gotta plan your sentences better, Ken.
I was like, I haven't finished this sentence and I'm running out of breath. This segment was later edited on the film's video release to remove all the parts with Bill smoking a cigarette, which involved almost the entire tornado scene, which shows Bill rolling a cigarette with his tongue and lighting it with a lightning bolt. So apparently at the time when they edited this out, it just looks really strange. The movements and the facial features of the character just look really strange.
We didn't watch it because the Disney Plus version has the smoking.
And the tornado. It has the unedited version. They just put a warning saying it contains dated images and references.
Well, the smoking isn't a dated image.
Yes, there's
the shooting the shooting at Indians to paint the land or whatever the hell. That's extraordinarily dated.
Yeah, Bill is a psychopath. He just goes around shooting his gun all the time at everyone.
Yes, and he uses the guns to shoot below his horse so that his horse can hover above water, and that's how he flies? And I'm like, that's not how guns work.
He chases the Indians for having the audacity to want to live their lives.
Yeah, legitimate. He just starts shooting at the Indians for no discernible reason other than, I guess, he gets kicks out of it. I don't know.
Bill's wild days come to an end when he meets Sue and immediately wants to marry her. So then they court, and Bill manages to woo her by threatening the moon and the stars into putting on a show for her, including I Love You, Sue, or something like that. It all gets very foggy from here because I started to zone out. Anyway, on the day of the wedding, Sue wants this, I can't remember what the word for it is. It's this kind of wire framing at the back of her dress to make her look like she has a big butt.
Yeah.
And Widowmaker, sensing the end of their fun times and their freedom, decides to totally get rid of her.
Yeah, jealous horse.
How does that happen again? How does she end up?
He propels her. She's it's like a seesaw situation. I don't remember the exact specifics, but he somehow launches her to the moon.
Yeah, she launches into the air, and that cage thing, apparently, that makes her butt look big in her dress, is very springy, so she keeps on bouncing up and down really high, and eventually she bounces to the moon and is never seen again.
Yeah. I'll be honest, this is 22 minutes long. 21?
Yeah, 22. It's the longest piece in the film.
I zoned out every now and again. So, I don't know. I was just waiting for this film to end.
When Bill first kisses Sue, his guns rise from his holsters and begin to fire by themselves, simulating ejaculation, which is another tick in the box of why this might have been banned or edited.
We were watching this, and there's a period halfway through where I just turned to you and said, Bill's about to fall in love in one glance, isn't he? And then the next scene, Bill falls in love in one glance.
I just turned my head and nodded and went, yep. I did my research for this one. All in all, I would have no desire to watch this short again.
No, it's very long. And what's the point?
It's also deeply problematic.
And this is why the coyotes howl.
I was about to get onto that point. This whole long 22-minute story is about killing Indians, being a general nuisance, chauvinism towards women, is all to tell you why coyotes howl at the moon.
Because their Bill was sad and they're sad in solidarity, and that's why they howl. There you go. What a film. Melody time. Whoa!
In terms of our final thoughts and legacy of this film, I have a few notes here.
Boo. That's my final thought.
Is it?
My final thought is boo.
Many of the 7 segments...
It's not even boo-worthy. God damn it, I hate this film. Because it's really not boo-worthy. Because there is some interesting exchanges. I don't know.
It's like all these package films. There is some merit to it. It has some interesting parts. It has some nice parts.
But even the interesting ones aren't great. There's none of these shorts that I'll be like, I'm going to watch that short again because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But they're also, I don't think any of them are this is one of the worst things ever. I don't know, Ken. I'm stuck. I'm stuck trying to describe this horribly mediocre film that's not bad or good or boring or any of those things, but also isn't just enjoyable, but it's not enjoyable. I don't know, Ken. I'm just going to be sitting here until the end of time trying to come up with the correct word to describe this film, and I will fail, and I will die, and they will make an animated short about it when World War III kicks off and Disney has to make new package films.
You don't know what you rant?
Yes, the boy who died watching Melody Time trying to describe it. Honestly, Melody Time kind of nailed it with my first 2 words in the podcast.
I thought Melody Crime was better, but
mine is more English wordy, so there you go.
For me, you want to talk about the benchmark of would I recommend it? No. Would I watch it again? No, genuinely not.
What are we on, nearly 40 minutes?
Yeah.
And I said I had nothing to say about this film.
It's like Rita Repulsa in Power Rangers. Once you're set free, you're taking over.
After 10,000 years, I'm free from watching this movie.
To rant about this movie for 45 minutes.
Time to talk endlessly about Melody Time.
If I'm to stack it up against the other films of the era of package films, I would say it's dead last.
I'd probably put it ahead of The Three Caballeros.
You would?
Yeah.
But
because I think The Three Caballeros is bad, and I don't think this is bad.
I think the first half of Three Caballeros is good. I'd watch the first half.
It's not even a half.
I'd watch the first 20 minutes of Three Caballeros over watching this again.
Nah, but then you have to see you can't just watch some of it, Ken. Then you have to watch the other 50 minutes of The Three Caballeros, and you have that same idea, the same thing. So I think it's the second worst of all of the Disney films. Never mind just the package films. But also, as I said, I don't think it's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the worst film of all time. I don't even think it's a waste of 75 minutes because it's probably not. It's not that bad. But I'm just sick of them. I've reached the limit of my ability to watch films like this, which is the reason I enjoyed the one more last week because it was 2 distinct. It was Bongo and Beanstalk, so it was 2 unique stories. And next week again, 2 unique stories, as opposed to these collection of 7 things that do have stories, but they're not stories that go anywhere, and they don't have. And it's like, as I said, it's a variety show with no variety.
It's a collection of things that feel either under-realized or over-realized.
Yeah, there's no just right. There's no Goldilocks situation here.
This film is a bit of an odd phenomenon in that many of the 7 segments were later released as shorts, and some of them became more successful than the original film. Bumble Boogie one.
Lord knows why.
Could have fooled me.
The Lord knows why. The Lord knows why.
Little Toot and Johnny Appleseed, Once Upon a Winter's Time. So this is a rare example of a film where the sum of its parts are actually better than the whole. So people could see in isolation that these things were good, but as part of the overall film, people just felt a bit confused and ripped off by it. Melody Time was also the last film to feature Donald Duck and Jose Carioca until the 1988 movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Jose Carioca would only be used sporadically over the next 70 years, thank God. He's since seen a resurgence, though, in the likes of DuckTales and the Three Caballeros series.
Are you happy with this? Has he been in an episode of DuckTales you've watched?
No, I've only seen the first series because they've only got one on Disney Plus, and they're now on the third series, which Jose Carioca is in, I think. So I'm waiting for Disney Plus to catch up. Interestingly, though, for the last while since he's returned, he's been voiced by a white actor, a famous actor, I can't remember his name, but he since stepped down and says that he won't voice Jose Carioca anymore because, as you know, he's a native of Brazil. So it's a bit insensitive.
Yes, and there's a big movement of people voicing white actors voicing non-white characters. So that's the substitute we get for defunding the police. No, we can't shift police funding over to more community-based initiatives to actually combat the sources of crime instead of just putting people in prison. We can have Alison Brie not voice a character anymore. That's the progress we're looking for. We're instead of stopping murdering black people in the street, we're going to put a warning in front of episodes with blackface.
Yeah,
like, which they should do, but that's not what people are looking for the love of God.
They should do, but it all comes off as a bit performative as well. Look at me doing my part.
But they should be doing their part, though. Everybody should be. The problem is that we're not holding public representatives to those same standards we're holding companies, and that's a problem at the start is. And the equal problem to that is really there's nothing that can be done about it. If the public representative is like, nah, it's like, what do you do? Well, you can vote them out, which hopefully will happen in November in the US in particular. But
Hollywood are like, we fixed it, we did it.
We still don't nominate anybody that's not white for Oscars, but still.
But we're gonna not voice black characters or ethnic characters. Great. Yeah, so basically it was this is what we asked for and this is what you gave us. It's like ordering something of Alibaba.
But like it's the problem is like it's only because the people who have actual power have done absolutely nothing that this stuff looks so out of place. Like these are probably things that should happen. You know, black people should voice black characters. Insensitive content should have content warnings. That's the stuff that should happen. It's just when that's the only stuff that happens in response to mass protests, that's when it looks farcical. So it's stupid. Like public, there should be significant law changes and significant like movement on that, but apparently people in power don't give a shit, and people in power have never given a shit. So.
And it feels like it's starting to die down again, which is a real shame.
Well, there's an election in the US in what month are we in? July 7? 4 months.
I think that's when the real statement can be made.
Yes.
Regardless, though, I don't want to see Jose Carioca, no matter who he's voiced by. Okay, Disney dudes. That's nearly it for the show this week. Our very own melody maker Nicole is coming up in just a few moments with a song from Melody Time. It's always a treat, so be sure to stick around for that after the outro. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday, where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out the website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com. That's buzz like a bee and sprout like the persecuted miniature cabbages, to find a full list of podcast providers. If you like the show and you are in the mood to help us out, please do consider giving us a positive review on your podcast platform of choice, share the podcast on your socials, or simply recommend the show to a fellow Disney aficionado. We really would appreciate your support in helping our amateur pod make it to the major leagues. We will be back next week at the same time, same place, with Disney's 11th feature, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But until then, stay safe and remember, if you ever go on the run and need to travel light, a copper pot is not just a cooking utensil. It can also double as an attractive hat. Now, Christmas has come early this week because here to sing us out is Nicole with Once Upon a Winter Time from Melody Time. And as an added bonus, she's only gone and thrown in some fun facts about the music of the film. Nicole, take it away, you legend.
Hi there, Disney buffs. This is your musical correspondent Nicole coming to you live from my bedroom. This week we're taking a look at Melody Time, the fifth package film made up of 7 segments. Interestingly, in the Bumble boogie segment, we have a jazz swing version of Rimsky-Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee, which was considered for the film Fantasia. For Blame It on the Samba, the music of a 1914 polka by Ernesto Nazareth was used and fitted with English lyrics. Disney once again used well-known names to draw in the crowds at the box office, such as singer, radio and film star Dennis Day and America's singing master Fred Waring. A clever move was the use of Frances Langford for the Once Upon a Wintertime segment. Langford was a Forces sweetheart, completing United Services Organization's tours on Bob Hope's The Pepsodent Show. As a post-wartime film, she would draw in a troop crowd. This week we're focusing on Langford's segment, Once Upon a Wintertime. During my research, I found out that she originally trained as an opera singer, but had to get her tonsils removed, which affected her voice, changing her range from a soprano to a rich contralto. At least that doesn't happen these days. Anyways, Christmas has come early. Here's my version of Once Upon a Winter Time.